in less than 15 minutes. But of course, can never tell the entire story because that would take 15 years. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and distill and crystallize all the learnings from that and offer what I would call the UPI approach. Not the product, not the story, the UPI approach. What were, in my opinion, some of the key ingredients that were present and that were needed. The first is that we were presented with a challenging situation. In 2008, 2009, 2010, in all the conversations with all the stakeholders on board, the challenging situation that was presented to everybody was, can one create eventually a payment solution which can be used in an auto-wala transaction? Bear in mind that it is not a use case. It is not a particular situation. It is perhaps one of the most challenging situations that you can find for payments. Not convenience. You have to be in a situation where you can actually beat cash. One was not trying to build better, cheaper, faster banks or ATM machines. One said, here is a challenging situation from the Indian context. Can we create eventually a solution for that situation? Because if you have a solution for that context, you more or less have addressed other situations. So lesson number one was start with a very, perhaps one of the most challenging situations you can within a certain domain. The second key ingredient of the UPI approach, in my opinion, was to bring unlike minds together. You had policymakers, you had government, you had industry, you had academia, you had professors, you had students, who all came in to try and address this issue. When when you have unlike minds that come together, they will continuously push you to think differently. And in fact, at that point in time, we also had a government grant in IIT Madras called the Mobile Payment Certification Lab, which ran from 2009 to 2012, which paid for all the students, research. And at that point of time, while that grant lasted for 3 years, the grant was for a sum total of 43 lakhs. The other advantage of when you have unlike minds together, at that point of time I was fortunate enough to be the chair of the technology committee and had this conversation with Dr. Burman, who was the co-chair of the Mobile Payment Forum of India, who was a representative from the Reserve Bank of India. And I said, sir, how does policy view technology? And with patting an eyelid, he looked at me, he said, you tell me what technology can do, and we will shape policy around it, except that make sure that the interests of the common person are protected. Security, paramount importance. That was my first lesson in responsible technology. Today, of course, it's very common to be talking about responsible AI, but that was my personal first experience and major lesson in responsible technology. It was a great example of how all of these people came together and co-created, co-helped to create this dream. The third ingredient of the UPI approach would be to continuously work for a democratic solution, which is high in quality, scalable, and affordable. So let me just recap. Identify a challenging situation, bring unlike minds together, work towards a democratic solution. This offers a framework not just to solve complex problems, but along the way also drive innovation. This is what I can summarize from all the learnings that one had. Which brings us to the here and now. All of us face shared problems, shared challenges, shared responsibility, shared opportunities. So as we sit here in 2024, something that is top of mind for everybody across the globe is AI. Some of us are excited by it, some of us are scared by it, all of us will innovate in this new world. So what is AI? In theory, it has three layers to it. A computer science layer, which is made up of programming, algorithms, data structures, databases. A mathematics layer, which has probability, statistics, optimization, and linear algebra. And when you combine the computer science with mathematics layer, with data, you get the broad area of data science, machine learning, and AI, with supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, and generative AI. Of course, there's much more to it than what is here on the slides, but these are the essential pillars. I'm often asked by students, so what does it take to be really successful in AI? So I have a slightly anecdotal way of answering that. It's not that you need to know this content, which you do. But the way I respond is that to be really successful in AI, you need to have the ability to think like a mathematician, reason like an engineer, and act like a computer scientist. And what I mean by that is, in mathematics, the two words you often hear are elegance and simplicity. In engineering, the two words you often hear are metrics and trade-offs. In computer science, the two words you often hear are build and robust. If your systems can encapsulate all of these, you probably will have a world-beating product. You will probably be very successful in AI. In practice, AI also has three layers to it. There is a computing layer, a data layer, and a models layer. So in a sense, AI is complex, large, and diverse. And the current view of the world is that to be successful in this world, everything should be of the form Excel. Large data sets, large compute, large models. And we'll come back to that. Now, on the other hand, let's see the essential ingredients, or some of the ingredients of India. India also is large, complex, and diverse. Look at the diversity in languages, in cultural elements, in socio-economic factors. So at one end you have AI, which is large, complex, and diverse. At the other end you have India, which is large, complex, and diverse. Now looking at these two, it seems pretty daunting. How do we marry the two? One way, one lens to look at them is through the lens of the UPI approach. Pick a challenging situation, get unlike minds together, work towards a democratic solution. And if you do that, you then suddenly see that there is a shift in perspective. You're aiming to address specific challenging problems, which by definition will need smaller, more contextualized data sets, which will need smaller models, which will need smaller compute power, which by definition will be cheaper. So you now have the opportunity of thinking of at least 10,000 solutions, 10,000 dreams, 10,000 problems, 10,000 opportunities for innovation across education, healthcare, financial services, transportation, communication, manufacturing, agriculture, water, energy, climate change, security, name it. And this can very easily provide a unique pathway for what one could think of in terms of an AI vision for India. And if one is able to do that across all of these problems, dreams, opportunities, so to speak, and you have used the UPI approach, you will eventually have solutions which not only serve within the Indian context, but like UPI, will also find lots of people across the border wanting to know how it was done, wanting also to adopt similar solutions. So if I were to think about AI not as artificial intelligence, but I'm going to have a bit of clear words here. Intelligence for the auto worker. That was the motivating use case for UPI. Now if you can look at the auto worker and his or her family and say just the way they can with a lot of ease use a UPI transaction, can one not aim in a similar way to provide education, healthcare, financial services, not just as payments, loans, savings, investments, access to the justice system. So then this provides a way of looking at AI through the lens of human-centric amplification. Of human-centric amplification. And we have what I would like to highlight is to give a sense of how we have, in our own little ways, tried to make progress in this. There's a wonderful conversation close to a year ago, which happened when I visited Hyderabad, between members of Swecha and Ozone Tel, and we said, why don't we work towards small language models? And of course that opportunity was completed by Swecha and Ozone Tel. They went and collected the data sets, they put in the required compute resource, and they had the Chanda Mama stories, the Chanda Mama AI coming out. This is an excellent example of what I mean by solving problems, identifying challenges within the Indian context. And now we are aiming to take this a one step further and extend it all Indian languages with help from students and researchers at IIT Madras. I'm often also asked by students, what can I do? It all seems very daunting. Where do I start? All of this sounds great. Okay, there's a certain perspective. Where do I start? Now, if I'm just going to end this, there's a very simple quote-unquote algorithm. Pick your dream. Pick the solution that is nearest to your heart. Pick the challenging situation that really annoys you, that you just simply can't rest until you have solved it. Not just solved it, but driven innovation in it. Step 1 of the algorithm, pick your dream. Step 2, apply the UPI approach. Step 3, never give up. Thank you so much for your time.